Eternity Wars is a tabletop board game based off of real-time strategy video games. Players manage resources, build bases, recruit armies, and engage in strategic combat similar to an RTS video game. In this video, we will be discussing how to play on the world map. There are two different game boards, the world map and the battle map. The world map is where players manage resources, expand their bases, and recruit units for their armies. Players may choose from a variety of different world maps to play on. The maps are included in the base set, as well as the expansion sets. The world map is cut up into zones indicated by the thick, broken lines, and these zones represent provinces. Players may move their units in and out of different provinces during the movement step. There are areas on the world map which cannot be accessed by units, and buildings may not be constructed on them. These are known as impassable zones. Impassable zones are indicated on the map as mountains, bodies of water, and forests. For example, on the map Coastal Wars, a player may not move his units from the province of High Falls to the adjacent province of Cooper because the Shivering Forest is in between them. It is important to know that a body of water such as a river with a bridge nearby is not considered an impassable zone. And on the same map, the player may move his units from the High Falls into Kingston. Impassable zones also obstruct unit scouting abilities. Each map has a number of gold mines placed on it. These gold mines are required for acquiring gold as a resource. In order to mine gold, a player must build a government center on a province with a gold mine. The player may then use their worker units to mine gold. The cards represent buildings or units. Buildings are always placed on the world map face up, and units are usually placed face down unless otherwise noted. For example, units that are performing a task such as gathering gold or activating an ability, like Scout, are turned face up. Players start the game with 5 worker units and 1 government center in their starting province. For example, the Vulcan player places 5 face-down peasant laborers and 1 face-up keep in the starting province of Orker. Players also start the game with 5 gold, 5 food, and 5 population. There are 4 primary turn steps that take place on the world map each turn. They are the resource step, the building and recruitment step, the movement step, and the end step. Players go through each step together, meaning that both players must participate in the resource step before going on to the building and recruitment step, and so forth. However, during each step, players take turns locking in their values before the other. During the resource step, the Thaw player decides how much gold he will be mining for the turn. After the Thaw player locks in his values, the Vulcan player may lock in his own values. The following turn, the order is switched, and the Vulcan player locks in his values before the Thaw player. This is called rotating initiative and is kept track by using an arrow card included within the set. The very first turn of the game, the player that goes first in locking in their values is determined by which faction they are playing. The Thaw player always goes first on the first turn, and the Vulcan player always goes last. This is called factional initiative. If players are using any expansion sets, the initiative order is as follows. The Thaw faction has the highest initiative, the Covenant of Necromancer has the second highest, and the Great Animal Kingdom the third, and the Vulcan Empire has the 4th and lowest initiative. In multiplayer games consisting of 3 or 4 players, the player with the highest factional initiative goes first. After that, the player to the left locks in his or her values second, and so forth. During the resource step, players collect food and decide how much gold they will be mining for the turn. Food is collected automatically based on how many resource production centers, such as farms and slaughterhouses, a player has built. Gold is collected by designating worker units to mine gold from a gold mine. In order to mine gold, a player must have a government center built on a province with a gold mine and must also have available worker units. To mine gold, the player turns his or her worker units face up to show that they are mining. The player then adds gold to his or her pool equal to the number of worker units mining. For example, the Vulcan player turns 4 worker units face up, indicating that he is mining 4 gold for that turn. Up to 10 worker units may mine from a single gold mine each turn. If a player wishes to acquire more gold each turn, they must build a government center in another province with a gold mine located on it. This is called an expansion. All gold and food acquired during the resource step is immediately available for use throughout the turn. After the resource step, players move on to the building and recruitment step, where they may construct new buildings and recruit units. In order to construct buildings, a player must have available worker units to build them. To build one building requires 1 worker unit, and constructing multiple buildings require multiple workers. Worker units that acquired gold during the resource step may not construct buildings. A player wishing to construct a building must turn a worker unit face up, just like in the resource step. They must then pay the gold cost of the building. Many buildings also require other buildings to be built before they can be constructed in a province. For example, the Vulcan player wishes to construct a farm in his starting province. The farm requires a keep in order to construct it, which the Vulcan player has in his starting province. He then turns a worker unit face up and then pays the farm's gold cost of 4 gold. Finally, he places the farm face up on his starting province. The building is considered under construction until the end of turn. Next turn, he will be able to acquire food from it. Recruiting units is much different than constructing buildings. In order to recruit units, a player must own the fully constructed building the unit is recruited from. Then the player needs to pay its cost to recruit the unit. Most units require the player to pay a gold, food, and population cost. Once this is done, the unit is placed face down the same province as the building it was recruited from. Players may recruit as many units as they wish as long as they have enough resources available. Newly recruited units may still move during the movement step. Players must always construct their buildings before they may recruit units. A player that immediately begins recruiting units may not construct buildings. Players must also declare how many resources they have spent on both buildings and units each turn. An example would be, I spent a total of 13 gold, 8 food, and 8 population on a building and 4 units. Players do not need to reveal which units they have purchased, but they do have to show how many they purchased. Population is a unique resource required in order to recruit units and is acquired through building settlements or government centers. Building a settlement increases population by 15. However, only one settlement may be built on any given province. Any additional settlements must all be built in separate provinces. Building a government center also provides a small boost of 10 population and may coincide in the same province as the settlement. When a unit is recruited, its population cost is subtracted from the total available population, just the same as gold and food. However, if the unit is destroyed, the population is added back to the player's pool. On each map, there exists a mercenary camp. This is a neutral building that may be accessed by both players. Players may recruit units from the mercenary camp, known as mercenary units. Mercenary units are distinguished by their grade card background and only cost gold and population to recruit. In order to gain control of the mercenary camp and recruit units from it, a player must control the province it is located in. In order to control a province with a mercenary camp in it, a player must either have at least one unit or one other building in that province. After each player has constructed buildings and recruited units, they may then move on to the movement step. During the movement step, each player may move any number of units they control. To move units, the player simply moves units into a province that is next to the one they are currently located in. All units may move except for worker units that have either mined gold or are constructing buildings during the turn. Units that have activated an ability requiring the unit to be turned face up may also not move. Sometimes players may wish to assault an enemy province. During the movement step, a player may choose units and then move those units into an adjacent province controlled by an opposing player. Once all designated units are moved into the enemy province, a battle is then conducted immediately on the battle map. It is important to note that the same player may not proceed to move any more units into any other provinces, and the other player may not move their units until the initiated battle is concluded. Once the battle is concluded, the player may continue with his or her movement step. This includes initiating another assault on the same or different province if he or she wishes. A player who has defended a province that has already been assaulted during the current movement step may still move normally and launch a counter-assault with the surviving units. Once all players have completed their movement step, they move on to the end step, which is the last step before the start of a new turn. During the end step, all buildings are considered to be constructed and may be utilized during the next turn. During this time, population is also added from newly constructed settlements and government centers. Worker units are also considered to have completed their tasks, whether it be mining gold or constructing buildings, and are therefore turned back to face down. The primary game mode is Objectives mode. Each player must accomplish one of 2 objectives determined by which faction they are playing. The first player to accomplish one of their objectives wins. If an objective has been accomplished during a turn, the game is considered over during the end step. There is no required format for how players must organize their cards on the world map, and as long as the appropriate cards are kept face up or face down and remain within province lines, players may choose to organize cards in any way they see fit. Players are allowed to stack cards in piles, but other players may still ask to see any face-up cards in those piles. There is, however, a recommended method for organizing cards. Traditionally, players organize their cards into 3 piles. one for buildings, another for units, and a final for worker units. For more in-depth rules, as well as technology trees, consult the rules booklet.